Welcome back, everybody. Thank you so much for sitting through that break. If you are just joining us, we just did a quick breakdown of the franchise tag, quite honestly, frenzy that has been going on in the NFL. There's a lot that we had to cover, that we had to get through. Um, some stuff that we will continue to talk about in later days, and stuff that will have bigger fallouts than just these players being tagged or not tagged. Um, but in this segment, we are going to focus on a story from yesterday, Russell Wilson getting released from the Denver Broncos. A story that has a lot of ripple effects around the NFL, surrounding Russell Wilson, obviously as a big quarterback, what it is going to mean. He's probably, depending on how you rate him, the second or third best free agent quarterback on the market now. It's not a very strong free agent quarterback market, and he was like an average quarterback last year. So we'll get into places he might go, what this means for the Broncos, how much money they're eating is insane. We'll talk about all that in just a second. But before we get into it, remember that if you would like to be an even bigger part of the show than you already are, all you need to do is go to gsmcpodcast.net. Leave a tip or donation with a message. It'll pop up on the bottom of the screen. We'll have a little discussion with you, what you had to say about anything we are talking about today or in the future. Again, that link is gsmcpodcast.net. Like I was saying, we are going to be talking about, Russell Wilson and the fallout that is going to happen with him. He obviously was released last night from the Denver Broncos, a move that a lot of people saw coming, a move that was always on the way. There were signs even as far back as December from last year. He obviously got benched for Jason Stidham, and that basically signaled his time in Denver had come to a close. So adding him in there is a very big move, or getting him out of there is a big move for the Broncos, not only because it's changing the trajectory of their team. You know, when they traded for him just 2 years ago, they were talked about to be Super Bowl contenders. You know, their team was just a quarterback away for so long, and then they went out and they got Russell Wilson from the Seahawks in part of that massive trade package, and it just has not worked out at all for them. So Russell Wilson has been released. They also handed him a fat contract when he signed. I believe it was a 7-year extension or something like that. So that is an albatross of a deal. The Broncos are eating $85 million in dead cap for Russell Wilson in the next couple seasons. They're saving $37 million, but they're eating 85, which is crazy for a player like that. He's going to clear waivers. No one is going to pick up that contract. He is going to become a free agent. And there's a couple ways we can look at this, and we're going to look at this from all angles. We're going to start from the Russell Wilson side of things. And he's kind of in an interesting spot because at this point, being released from a team, he has taken a huge step back from his prime. He clearly is never going to be Seattle Russell Wilson again. That's out of the picture. But he can, if you look at his numbers, he wasn't awful last season. He was average, but he wasn't awful. He doesn't have the same creating ability that he used to have with his legs, and he's not the same. He can still make all the throws, but he's just not as he's not as good as he was when he was able to extend all those plays with his legs like he was in Seattle. So there's a couple options for him. Obviously, clearing waivers first. He's not going to get signed to a team probably until after the draft happens, maybe slightly before. I wouldn't expect Russell Wilson to be on a team anytime soon. I'd expect him to maybe not even be on a team until the preseason starts. Now, it's tough to do that if you want to be a starting quarterback. But there's no guarantee that he's going to be a starting quarterback. I think we're going to have to wait for a couple dominoes to fall before Russell Wilson gets signed. He won't be the first one. I think where Kirk Cousins goes is a major piece of the puzzle for Russell Wilson. because there's a couple teams out there that are in that sweepstakes for Kirk Cousins, whose second option would probably be Russell Wilson. You look at a team like the Vikings, obviously, that want Kirk Cousins back. It seems, but if he doesn't come back, I think Russell Wilson is about as the best plan B they can get. They're not drafting too high. They don't really have enough capital or aren't in the right spot to trade up to get one of those quarterbacks. And they don't really want to run it back with Nick Mullins and Joshua Dobbs again. Because as magical as it was for Joshua Dobbs in the beginning, it did not turn out too well at the end. So a team like the Vikings is somewhere I could see it happening. There's a very specific set of circumstances that need to happen for Russell Wilson to both be a starter on a team and also be on a roster, to be a starter on the team. The team needs to have a hole at quarterback, and B, it needs to not have too high of a draft pick. Because if you look at a team like the Commanders or the Bears or the Patriots or really those main three, those three have quarterback holes. They're going to draft quarterbacks, and those three guys are better. And then you look at the Broncos at 12, they just cut him. Most likely a move to, and we'll get into the Broncos a little bit, what that signals to me at least is that they're going to draft a quarterback. I think they're going to get J.J. McCarthy, and the Raiders are right behind them. Russell Wilson to the Raiders, I think, could be interesting. I don't think that is a great fit for him, but I think the Raiders are a team that, they went out and they had the Jimmy G experience last year, and that didn't work, and they turned into Aiden O'Connell, Brian Hoyer for a start. It's not the greatest situation, and them and the Broncos, as much as I might not like J.J. McCarthy, the Broncos and the Raiders seem like the heavy favorites to go and get J.J. McCarthy. They seem resigned to saying, hey, we know we're not going to get those top three guys. And then there's a tier jump there. We're not going to get Drake May. We're not going to get Caleb Williams. We're not going to get Jaden Daniels. But J.J. McCarthy is there, who has been in the first round mocks for quite a while now. He got a lot of hype at the Combine, and he continued with his interviews and stuff and what he did. But with the Broncos picking one pick ahead of the Raiders, and they're obviously not signing Russell Wilson, I feel like if the Raiders do not trade up, which they have been rumored to want to do, they've been looking at trading up somewhere in the 5 to 8 range. Not sure exactly why. Maybe they want to secure a quarterback. Maybe they really think the Giants are going to draft J.J. McCarthy at 6, which I have a hard time believing, but it could still happen. There's a lot of things that could happen here, but I think the top two teams for Russell Wilson, at least if he's going to be a starter, that fit that criteria of needing a quarterback, obviously, and not being high enough in the draft order to draft a better quarterback than Russell Wilson, it's going to be the Raiders and the Vikings. Again, Kirk Cousins is a possibility, is out there, and he's going to have to get signed before Russell Wilson does, most likely, because that's going to be the big quarterback market domino outside of Justin Fields. Those two need to go first, and then it'll be Russell Wilson as the main prize. The other option that I've seen circulating around the internet for Russell Wilson to do is to wait until a quarterback gets hurt and come in and at the end of the season step up, win a couple games, take him to the playoffs, comparing him to what Joe Flacco did last season. And that's just not something I see him doing. He seems like he wants to play still. As much, he's not going to get a big contract. He's going to get closer to the vet min with incentive-laden contract, most likely. for a team that needs him. Uh, there's a bunch of places he could go, but I think the Vikings and the Raiders are the top two most likely candidates for him, at least in my opinion. Um, but the Broncos here, we talked a little bit about them. They're picking 12 in the draft there. Right now, their quarterback situation is Jared Stidham. Uh, and, they're another team that could go out and they could draft J.J. McCarthy. They could go out and they could try and sign Kirk Cousins. It wouldn't be the first time they went out and grabbed a quarterback from another team like that. The Broncos are in a really interesting position because they're not quite that close. They're not quite a quarterback away. They've traded a lot of pieces away because they've been really bad since that Russell Wilson trade, and it just didn't work out the way it was supposed to. Uh, it's the Broncos are also in a very interesting spot. We talked a little bit about the spot that the Giants are in. The Broncos are in a similar spot. I think they're slightly more. I think they're better off than the Giants are as far as being set up to get out of that spot. But they're kind of in that same spot where whatever they do, it's going to suck. Um, and it has to suck to get better, unfortunately. That's just how it works sometimes. So I think what the Broncos are going to end up doing is drafting J.J. McCarthy as long as no one jumps them in that order. Uh, we'll have to see what happens, though. This move, as much as we all saw it coming, it does send a lot of shockwaves through the rest of the league. Uh, but yeah, in the coming up segment, we are going to finish off our NFL coverage by talking about some of the draft prospects that rose and fell that had risen and fallen in the NFL Combine over the weekend. We're going to talk a little bit about the big debate over Caleb Williams again. What him not participating in the Combine means, if it even is a big deal. There's been a lot of talk about that. We're going to cover all that and some more NFL breaking news. Some more NFL breaking news right around the corner. Stick around. We'll be right back on GSMC Podcast Network.